What's up, everyone? Welcome to Notes. And I guess it's been a long time that I have uploaded any content on my YouTube channel. So I thought that it's time now. And I will try my best to be consistent. So let's start with a new series and on a new topic, I guess. So today, I think we will be introduction of our JavaScript fundamental series. And I think from the past 4 to 5 months, I have been, learning about the fundamentals and the under the hood concepts of JavaScript. And this series is dedicated to all of my that learning. And I will, present all the concepts of JavaScript to you guys, and that will obviously be on my YouTube channel. Okay. And so yeah, let's start by understanding that why I chose this topic of of the fundamentals of JavaScript. And I think there is a story revolving around this. I do remember that when I started my career with JavaScript, and obviously you can't skip JavaScript, right? On the front end side of any web application there is JavaScript, right? Doesn't matter which framework you are using, you have to go through JavaScript. So at the start of my career, when I was working with JavaScript side of things, I do remember that we done a lot of projects and I was very much confident. So I thought that yeah, now it's time to now we can say that I have moved from my junior level to a senior level. And I do remember that one of my seniors came to me and he asked me just one trickiest question of JavaScript. And it was just a concept or a question or a code, I would say, that I was using day to day, but I didn't know that why this is just a weird behavior in JavaScript. Let me explain you that how. So let me just bring my VS Code, and here again I am having one simple JavaScript file. And the question he asked was that, so let's say he created a string of maybe let's say test, and he said that this is right string. So he gave me a string, right? And then he asked me that, yeah, do tell me that whether string is a primitive data type or it is a non-primitive data type, right? I was confident enough and I told him, yeah, I know that. That's a very simple question, I guess. So yeah, we all know that the string is primitive data type. So I said that, yeah, it's primitive, right? So then he told me that, can you do something like this, like test dot to uppercase? Yeah, and you can see that even though VS Code is giving me suggestions on that. So I said, yeah, totally. I have used this a lot in my JavaScript code. So he just, manipulated the question and asked me that if string is a primitive data type, so how can I access a function over a primitive data type? And I said, what? Yeah, that's a very tricky question, I guess. I have been using this a lot, but it never came into my mind that this is a primitive, right? How can I access a function over it? So that day, I started digging deep down into the fundamentals of JavaScript. And I guess getting started with JavaScript is way simple. It's way easy. But as you dig deep down into the fundamentals of JavaScript, it's a very weird language as compared to other programming languages. So this series is dedicated to all those weird concepts of JavaScript. We will explore them and we will learn them, that how this will benefit us. And the question might be that, yeah, if you guys know that there are, these concepts, but you guys can work, by ignoring all those concepts and you can build projects. So why the hell we need to learn all these fundamentals, right? So the answer is very much simple. So let's say, let me just bring on to this diagram, right? Okay. So let's say we are having one chart. Okay. So let me just bring in this chart right over here, and let's do something like this maybe. Okay, so let's say you have started your journey. So your journey would be something like way simpler. So you start learning the fundamentals, basic fundamentals like for loop, if conditions, and you get a little spike, and then you start building your projects, and then your career goes something like this. And from here, it is just a flatter one. Okay, but if you start learning the fundamentals, the weird concepts, so your curve goes something like this. Let me just change the color for that one. So let's go with green. So it starts over here. You learn the basic fundamentals like the for loop, the language, the syntax, and then you start building your project. And when you learn the fundamentals, you will get this spike, and then you will go onto this level right over here. Now this spike right over here, for achieving this spike doesn't mean that you will get benefit by understanding the language, but you will also get the benefit of going from junior level to higher senior level. And this will help you to write more effective and optimized code in JavaScript. Now, why does it matter to write effective code and optimized code? Because when things scale up, there are way different bugs involved, right? So it happens with the spoken language, I guess. It happens same, right? So how can you judge a person who can, speak well? So you can say that, yeah, obviously, if a person can express a lot of information in less number of lines, and that information is precise, so that means he's a well spoken person in that particular language, right? Same goes with the programmer, right? So how can you judge that he is good with JavaScript? The reason is, or the answer would be, that he can write a lot of business use cases with less number of lines of code, and that code is optimized and scalable. Okay, and when I say that there are less number of lines, so I mean that if there are less number of lines, so I have to debug less lines of code when something goes wrong. So that's the curve what I'm talking about, right? So for achieving this curve, or for achieving the fundamentals of JavaScript, you have to go to this peak right over here. Okay, and once you understand the fundamentals, you will see that, yeah, JavaScript under the hood is very beautiful language, but it's very weird as compared to the programming languages. Okay, so that's the reason I chose to start this series, because once you grasp the knowledge, you deliver the knowledge, that knowledge becomes hard coded in your mind. Okay, so that's the reason this series I have started. Okay, so yeah, so let's say let me just delete this one, and this is just a diagram. I will share this this diagram or this board with you guys on GitHub, maybe, or maybe I will share the link in the description. So this is just the starting point of our JavaScript fundamentals, and today our topic is compilers versus interpreters. And again, as we move on, I will just append different type of topics over here, and we can move on and on. And this is just organization chart, I would say, to make things organized, right? So that's why I've created this, so you guys know that where we have started and where we are working right now and where we will move on, right? So now let's understand the difference between compilers and interpreters, and I guess this is one of the concepts which you have to understand before understanding JavaScript, right? So let's move on. Let me just create a new board if I can. So yeah, let's go with a new file. And now I want you guys to have a story, right? So for understanding compilers and interpreters. So let me just bring in a user. Okay, so yeah, this is my one user. So let me just scale it up, and let's bring another user, and let's bring one more user. Okay, so now let's say this user is a father. Okay, and this is the mother, and let's say this is the child, right? So now what happened is I usually give credit to my seniors for understanding me the compilers and interpreters concept through this story, and it's a very effective story, I guess. So let's say you're having a child, and this child has a habit to to listen to bedtime stories from mother as well as through father. Okay, so how mother will approach to teach this child is, obviously mothers majority are housewives, so they do have a lot of time for preparing those stories, or for preparing or for working for their child, right? So what the mother will do is, so let's say mother knows that when the child sleeps at night, I have to prepare a story, or I have to read a bedtime story for him. Okay, so she takes time. Okay, she prepares everything before telling the story to the child from the storybook, right? So there is a book involved. So let me just bring the book if there is. Okay, yeah, so this is my brilliant book right over here. So this is the book. So what mother do is, before going to the bed with the child, the mother prepares the story. Mother takes time, read the whole chapter thoroughly, optimize it, and read it, and expand, prepare something that would be very much easy to explain to this child right over here. Okay, so this is the approach for the mother, right? So mother will come. Okay, mother will be already prepared with that chapter, and mother will start telling the bedtime story to that child. So that's one concept revolving here. Okay, but now let's discuss the approach of the father, right? So let's bring back the mother, and let's say father. Now as fathers, we know that we are always busy with work, so we don't have that much of time to convey or work with our childs, or spend time with them. So if a father's approach to tell a bedtime story to a child will be very different, right? So he will just come in here, and he will just open the book, and he will start reading the story directly to the child, rather preparing before. Okay, because we don't have time as fathers, right? So now what the father will do is father will just open the book and start reading his story line by line, and that's it. Okay. And now the problem with this is maybe there would be some difficult keyword or some difficult vocabulary which father couldn't explain to the child at the same time, right? But the mother could do that because the mother was preparing for that story preparation before early. Okay. So now this is the concept of, compilers and interpreters. Okay. So now just assume that this father is an interpreter. So let me just change this thing, interpreter. Okay. And this mother is the compiler. Okay. Now why I'm saying this is because compilers are something which, completely reads our code, understands our code, and convert all the concepts and the code into machine language, which is then fed to our machines, right? So just assume that this child is our PC or machine, whatever you can say. So this is our machine. So let me call this as PC. Okay. So this is our machine which understands binary code. So as a mother, because mother has a lot of time, so mother can, just read the code, understand all the code, and compile all the code once into that machine language, and can just, directly feed that concept into the child. Okay. And that's how compilers work. Okay. And rather, the approach of the father is way different, right? So the father doesn't compile the code, the father doesn't read the whole chapter and all that stuff. It just comes in and just start reading line by line, and that's what interpreters do. And again, there are pros and cons to each of them, right? So let me just discuss the pros of the compiler. Now the pros of the compiler is obviously, let me just write over here, let me bring in a text. So the pros of the compiler can be that they are always optimized. They are always optimized, right? Now why I'm saying this is that they're always optimized is because they have time to go through and read the whole code, compile the whole code. They are having that much of time. That's why they're always optimized, right? That's one pros. And the con of, I would say, of a compiler is that they are very slow at starting, right? So I would say the problem is, let me just write another text. They are slow at starting, right? The reason I'm saying is they're slow at starting is because they need time, right? So the mothers need time before telling the bad stories to the child. So that is the slowness of the compiler, because they need time to compile your whole code into the machine language. Okay, so this is just a simple diagram. So let's say this is my compiler. Okay, this is my compiler, whatever. Sorry for the spellings, by the way. This is my compiler, which takes our code. So this is our, I would say, code, which takes the code and it compiles it into the machine language, which is obviously the 010, which is the binary, right? Now for doing this, we all know that compilers will take time, and that's why they are slow at code execution. Okay, so they need time to execute all the stuff. Okay, but on the other hand, if I talk about the father's concept, so the father is a different approach, right? So they are just like interpreters. They don't need to start slowly. Okay, they can start at an instant point, right? So let's say if this is the case of the interpreter, the one of the best pros of, I would say, the advantages of an interpreter would be that they are fast to start, right? They can start as soon as possible, right? But the problem with them is that if they are fast to start, but they are also not optimized, right? They're not optimized. The reason I'm saying is not optimized is because, let's say if the father is delivering the bedtime story to the children and he faces one of the most difficult vocabulary, so at that time he might not be having that much of knowledge to convey that meaning of the vocabulary to the child such effectively, right? So he might not be having that much of knowledge to convey that vocabulary to the child effectively. That's the reason I'm saying that the interpreters or the fathers are obviously not optimized, right? So that's the disadvantage of interpreter. Okay, but on the other hand, we know that compilers or mothers, they are always optimized because they have time before to understand all the look. They can go and look up to the dictionary that how can I explain that concept effectively to the child, right? So that's the story. I would say my seniors told me to understand the concept of compilers and interpreters. Now the question here is, okay, so let's come to the main concept. is that whether JavaScript is compiled language or an interpreted language. And I would say the reason is way simpler if you know that how JavaScript is being served, right? So let's come over here. Let's come over here and let's say that this is my server, right? So this is the server. Okay. And we all know that our code relies over here. Okay. Our code is here, and that code is obviously our JavaScript, I would say. Okay. So the JavaScript is right over here. So this is the JavaScript which is kept on our server. And let's say if there is any client, let's make it user, or let's say browser. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is our browser, right? So let's bring in the browser. So the browser is requesting. So let's say that request is maybe something on google.com. Okay. So once they go to google.com, they are redirected to their server, and that server will serve the JavaScript, HTML and CSS files back to the user, right? That's how our front-end applications work, right? And these JavaScript and HTML files, when they are served into our browser, what do you think? Should we go with the compilation approach, or should we go with the interpretation approach? Okay, so just pause the video and think about it. Okay, so now let's get to the answer. The answer is interpretation, okay, not compilation. The reason is because we know that compilers are very slow in execution of code because they take time. Okay, the mother needs time before, you know, telling the bedtime story to the child, right? Needs to prepare. But as we all know that when JavaScript is served directly into the browser, we can't wait, right? We can't wait for that compilation step because we need to provide interactivity and all that data fetching to our site so that users can, you know, within seconds start interacting with our web page, right? So if we go with the compilation page or the compilation concept, sorry, so that would mean that the users have to wait for the compilation to finish and then they can start interacting with the web page. Okay, so that's what we don't need. So I guess the best approach would be to make JavaScript as an interpreted language, because right now we are not concerned about optimization. We are concerned to just give the user, you know, direct interactivity within just seconds. Okay, so that's our very first approach, and that's the reason why JavaScript is interpreted language. Okay, so that's the main concept over here, and I guess this is why JavaScript interpretation makes it beautiful. Okay, we execute the line as soon as JavaScript arrives in our browser to give our users the best experience of our sites. Okay, so yeah, right now you can tell me that yeah, it's way simpler that JavaScript is interpreted language, right? But let me just give you a shock, okay? Because I said yeah, JavaScript is a very weird language, right? So if you come to Google and let's fetch for the official docs, so you can, you know, say JavaScript official documentation, and do remember that these MD and web docs by Mozilla, they are the official and they are said to be the official documentation of JavaScript. When you open this thing, here you can see that it states that JavaScript is an, let me just zoom in for now, JavaScript is an lightweight, interpreted or just-in-time compiled. What? Right now we were discussing that yeah, it's an interpreted language, but why is the compilation word over here, and what is this just-in-time thing, right? So that will make you a little bit confused, but don't worry, we will cover that in the next video. Okay, and what if, let me just give you a small hint before ending this video. What if we can combine both the approaches of the mother and the father to deliver the bedtime stories to the child, right? So now you can easily understand the concept. Okay, so this is just a shocker and we will cover that in the coming on videos. Okay, so I think that's it. So right now we are done with the understanding of compilers and interpreters, and I hope you had a little understanding of how things are working when we are discussing JavaScript in the world of compilation and interpretation. Okay, so if you're liking my content, do like and subscribe the channel, and if you guys want me to, you know, work on a project or something else, I would like to contribute on my skills. And yeah, that's it from now. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.